Hello, fellow YouTube miniature painters. This is Doc Eon, starting up day 10 of the Warboss Tay May Painting Challenge. And you can see that this morning I got some things done before I started filming. Namely, I base coated a few things. I base coated the casing of the pistol in this color, black-red. And I did a base coat, you might say an undercoat of the cloth in a really old color here. Macari's Solar Orange, an old foundation paint from Citadel. Now, when I say an undercoat, what I mean is this is not the color I actually want it to be in the end. What I'm going to do is I'm going to blend, highlight up this progression of colors from game color: hot orange, golden yellow, and moon yellow. The issue with the Vallejo game color yellows in particular is they cover like crap. They're really, really bad. But I'm determined to make them work for me. And I have this theory, which I'm testing out live on camera now, that if I have an undercoat of something similar to the color I actually want, then if this peeks through, if the color I'm using is too see-through, then at least it doesn't look horrible. At least it's not just the gray primer showing through. So yeah, we'll see how that works out in practice. I don't actually know yet. I'm experimenting on camera. So I'm picking up the actual base color here, which is the hot orange, and we'll see if I can lay this down and see how that looks. It's kind of runny. It's going into the crevices, at least. This is what, and it has chunks. Jeez, what a lousy color. Yeah. Some paints are just difficult to work with, and yeah, we'll see how this goes. This is behaving almost like a wash. I don't actually want to wash this. I'll explain a bit later why, but yeah, this paint is not quite doing what I wanted to do, but that is, well, let's let this dry and see how it turns out. As I said, okay, and here we have air bubbles, and I need to pop those. Oh, well, man. That looked pretty bad. Well, maybe if I do a bunch of coats, this might work better. We'll see. In the meantime, I can highlight, or rather apply some paint to the bolter. I'm going to go up slightly in shade and use scarlet red, and just apply this very carefully and see what happens. The question of the day is another really strange one. It says, let me see what it says. Hollywood makes a movie about you, specifically about you and your hobby, and how it changed the world for the better. What would it be called? Who would play you in the film? Man, what a strange question. My hobby? Miniature painting? Miniature painting changing the world for the better. Warboss Tay, what kind of drugs do you want? And can I have some? What? I don't get it. I'm sorry, I'm baffled. I have failed to see how miniature painting could possibly make the world a better place. Maybe this is a lack of imagination on my part. Maybe I'm imaginatively challenged. That must be it. I must be stupid, but I can't come up with anything. So I'm going to change the question. I'm going to change it to apply to my day job, because my actual thing that I do for a living is that I'm a teacher, and I actually do that job to make the world a better place, like one student at a time. I believe that teaching people important knowledge will, in the long run, make the world a better place. What would a movie like that be called? I don't know. Maybe something along the lines of what I just said. Saving the world one mind at a time. Yeah, that's the best thing I can come up with at the moment. I'm sorry. It's not really great, I know. Who would play you in the movie? Oh, yeah, that's easy. The actor. To portray me, there's only one actor. It's his name is Nikolai Coster-Waldau. You might know him more as Jaime Lannister from Game of Thrones. Yeah, he would play me. No doubt about that. Okay, so we have a slightly brighter red there. The orange is going to need more time to dry, so we'll have to cut a little bit here. And yeah, it's behaving like a wash, which I don't want. In fact, I almost never use washes on cloth like this to shade. And this model is perhaps not a good example to explain why. I'm gonna find a different miniature where I can demonstrate what I mean. Be back with that in a second. So to perhaps give you a slightly clearer idea of what I mean, let's look at this example instead, this cloak here. Now this has been simply base coated in a light gray, so you can see it clearly, and it has a lot of folds that run sort of almost horizontal. And I've cut the light. I only have one lamp which is shining from over here, this direction. So the shadows are very clear. Now, as you can clearly see, the light catches on the lower edges here, because if you look at it from above, this is where light comes down and it would hit these edges. And shadows are underneath. Shadows are underneath the overhang. Shadows are like up here. But if I were to put a wash on this, the wash would collect, it would pull on these lower edges, because that's where gravity would pull it. And so the shadows would be all wrong. And also, if you look at here at the bottom, where sort of the cloak flares out, you can see, looking at it from above again, how it, again in the light, it flares out, and there is actually the shadows would be down here in the cracks, but if I were to put a wash on it, there would be a lot of the wash pooling on areas like this, and let's see if you can see what I mean, down here where there shouldn't be a shadow, meaning I would have to go in and fix it again. I mean, and actually, I mean, the point of a wash is that it's a fast and easy way of getting a shade, and having to go in and correct mistakes after the fact, that sort of defeats the purpose of it. And you might say, well, if you want the shade up here, you could apply the wash and hold the miniature upside down while it dries. Is that a good idea? Spending my time literally watching paint dry? I could spend the same amount of time doing layers or blending to get the shadows and the highlights I wanted. which would be much more interesting than just like holding a miniature in place waiting for the wash to dry. And I would have to do it in several stages. I would have to do this portion holding it one way and leave that to dry, and then I would have to wash this area and hold it this way, holding it so it collects downward like this. Way too much work, way too much work. So that is why I have gone a different way. With why I always go a different way with cloth. I never use washes. Well, you should never say never, but as far as I can recall currently, I never use washes on cloth. Thank you. And after 3 or 4 coats of the hot orange, I managed to make it stick. As you can see, that it's darkened the original sort of pale orange color a bit. I did a few other things. On the bolter casing, I went in with just a slight edge highlight of bloody red. I don't know if it's even noticeable, though the camera probably picks it up more than the eye does. And the sharp-eyed among you will notice that I've painted a few other things. Because I had those reds on my palette, I just went ahead and did the wax seals on the purity seal and on these rolled up scrolls. I wasn't going to do them at this stage. I was going to wait and do the parchment first since it's underneath, but heck, I finished. I thought, the paints are there, why not use them? This might mean I get splashed some other paint on them later, but I'll just redo them. They're minor details. Now, for the highlighting. I think I'll have to change my plans. My original plan was to use this to demonstrate some wet blending for you guys. Because if you look at, for example, the folds, we have the raised parts of the folds on the cloth here. Those need to be highlighted, but they shouldn't be uniformly highlighted, because if you're looking at it from above, how the light falls, then the top part here is actually in shadow under the belt a little bit. Then it flares out, and the bottom part edges will catch more light. So there needs to be a blend. But you see this gold yellow, it is so thin. When I lay it on here, it barely registers. It's really, really light. And so what I think I'm gonna have to do instead is just use my normal sort of technique of layering up. You can see it's slightly brighter now. So what I'm going to do instead of wet blending is to simply put on a first layer of the golden yellow and then a second coat, which I'll bring further down, and not put the second coat up here at the top. And I'll just keep progressing in more and more coats the further down I get, to get the yellow to be more and more yellow the further down you go. And this is time consuming, and also, again, the battery light is blinking. I don't know why I film so much. So after a few hours of work and after the battery is recharged, I'll come back and show you my results. See you then. There we go. Actually, it took longer for the battery to charge than for the paint to be applied. And I'm sorry about the lack of focus in the previous segment, but on reviewing it, I thought that you can see clear enough what's going on. Yeah, I don't need to redo that. Anyway, the gold yellow has now been applied, and you can see, well, if you compare it to the color in the bottle, you can see that I've brought it up to this color at the tips. It can't really go any further, so it's time to bring in the next color. I'm going to bring in the moon yellow and do some more highlighting. Oh, and by the way, I painted the back of the skirt or whatever, and it's slightly darker, you can see, and I'm gonna leave it like that. I'm not highlighting it up any further. So, time for the moon yellow, and I'll be right back. And we're done for the day, I think. You know, I think I'm pretty happy now with the color I've gotten on the apron, as I call it. Now we're starting to see the contrast I was talking about when I talked about laying out the plan for the model. How the cloth is really bright as opposed to the somewhat more muted blue of the armor. Yeah, a good day's work. Good job, Dr. Young. I thought I would also update you on my side projects. We have finished, well, let's move this out of the way. Finished these guys. I thought they were spiders, but then I realized that the little things in front are actually mandibles, so they only have 6 legs, which means they are insects, beetles, to be exact. And in Dungeons & Dragons, the most common beetle-type monster is the fire beetle, so I painted these somewhat red. Yeah, and I left them a bit glossy, semi-gloss finish on the carapace, because many insects are kind of a bit glossy. Oops. Now the spiders are these are spiders, by the way, but they're only just base coated in a basic brown so far. I'm still looking around the net for pictures of spiders, trying to find out some interesting patterns that I can copy. Once those are done, the next stage in my, painting up all the bones minis project is these, you can't actually see anything, the lights are too bright. These mummies for them. They should be simple because they're all covered in bandages, so it's like just one color, basically. Well, I mean one type of material to paint, that is. Well, that is it for today. I know it's been a really long video, but I did get a lot done because it's Sunday. I'm not doing much else. This is Daki Yan. Until tomorrow, I am signing off.